Welcome back, football fanatics. As we look at games of the week in the NFL, we're up to now week 17. It's gone by so quickly. And of course, when we want to preview the best games in the NFL this week, we go to the guy who's got all the answers for us. And of course, that is our NFL managing editor, David Kull. David, what a holiday weekend with all the games. We had the big Ravens 49ers game. We had the Raiders upset the Chiefs. We had the Eagles get back to their winning ways while still having a lot of question marks. Coming up this week, a couple of games. We're going to focus on one on the AFC side that's got some championship and seeding implications, and then one on the NFC side for the same reason. Let's start with the AFC. We have the Dolphins and the Ravens. The Dolphins, they're hearing behind them. They're feeling the breath on the back of their neck of the Buffalo Bills. Even in the AFC East, Dolphins still in search of a big win on the road. They won, of course, at home, just destroying the Cowboys, in my view, even no matter what the score was. So you look at the Dolphins going in to play the Ravens. Ravens, the number one seed. They got that locked up pretty much. Let's talk about this game. The Ravens have so much momentum coming off that win against San Francisco on the road against the 49ers, who just didn't play a good game. Let's just say what it was. But the Dolphins now have a lot to prove, and going in against this Ravens defense, which is really tough. You look at this game. First, let's start with the Dolphins. What do the Dolphins have to do to have a chance against that Ravens defense and stopping Lamar Jackson now, who's catapulted himself into the lead, I think, in the MVP race?
I think he has two, Scott. What the Dolphins need to do is they just need to score points, and that's going to be tough to do, as we saw with the 49ers against that Ravens defense and all the troubles they had. 5 picks in that game, 4 by thrown by Brock Purdy. Tua is going to have to be on his game, and that's going to be tough in this game because with Tua, you have his weapons on the outside with Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle. And we know Waddle's banged up now. He has a high ankle injury. He's questionable for the game at the moment. Hill, they were trying to limit his snap counts last week, but they really couldn't do that. He caught 9 passes last week, and he played for most of the offensive snaps. And now this week, there's going to be even more of a burden placed on him and he has his own ankle issues as well. So with him on the outside, really being kind of the lone guy because they have other injuries on that receiving core too. So with Tua having limited weapons going into that game, what I think is going to happen here is they really need to concentrate on their ground game because with A-Chain and Mostert, they have one of the top running games in the league. They're going to have to focus on the run a little bit more, which was something that early on in the 49ers game that the Ravens had, the 49ers didn't. They were throwing, they came out just throwing the ball.
Throw the ball.
And that led to Purdy's first interception in the end zone by Kyle Hamilton. With the Dolphins, I think they're just going to be more, they need to be more balanced. They need to get H-Chain and Mostert going, open up opportunities for Tua to get the ball to Tyreek Hill and whoever else is wearing a uniform and playing wide receiver for the Dolphins this weekend, and just have a balanced attack and come out and attack them that way. I think that's the most effective way that they can go about it with this Ravens defense, which stacks the quarterback more than anybody else in the league, and they just have playmakers all over the place. We don't know about the condition of Kyle Hamilton at this point. He suffered an injury in that game, and he obviously is critical to that defense. He's a playmaker in his second year, had 2 interceptions in that game, hybrid defender all over the field making plays. So the Dolphins, I think, can attack them, but they just have to be balanced.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I mean, you look at the 49ers, despite the way that game went, Christian McCaffrey still had 103 yards rushing, the average of 7.49 yards per carry. So clearly you're right. You can, as good as that Ravens defense is, if you can establish the run, keep them off balance with some of the passing game you're talking about, especially with the motion that Miami has in their offense, that's the secret to success for them. If they're going to keep the Ravens on their heels, they're going to have to come in with a really strong game plan. So Mike McDaniel has his hands full there. On the other side of it, the Baltimore Ravens, we've seen Lamar Jackson, and you and I talked about it over the last couple of weeks, actually, which is they've kind of flown under the radar. And Lamar Jackson, for all the criticisms he gets about throwing the ball downfield, he does it well. He's doing it. He did it against the 49ers, 23 of 35 for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. Is Lamar Jackson finally the quarterback that everybody thought he could be? Of course, he had an MVP year, but the criticism has always been, well, he runs too much. He needs to be able to throw the much. He needs to stick in the pocket a little more. He seems to be doing that, David, and the results are pretty dang good. Now that he's got Zay Flowers, there too. He's got his kind of premier wide receiver finally.
He does. The one thing about Lamar Jackson, where he's really matured as a quarterback, is he's not looking to run so much. He's looking to extend plays. And that's what he does better than any quarterback in the NFL, is that he uses his feet to extend plays, to open up guys in the passing game, for guys to find those creases and find those gaps in the defense. And that's exactly what was happening against the 49ers. He had that one long run. It was a 31-yard run in that game. It was the longest run of the season. And yeah, he's going to generate some rushing yards because he has to use his feet at times to get out of the pocket and scramble a bit. But really in that game, what he was looking to do was use his feet to open up guys downfield, to just extend the play 5, 6, 7 seconds at times. They're chasing him all over the place. And yet a guy like Zay Flowers can, during that time frame, he could find a spot and Lamar is able to hit him with a pass. That happened all throughout that game. And I have no clue how you defend that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think Lamar Jackson and the confidence level he has and staying healthy, right? I mean, staying healthy is a big part of this. We know about the Ravens. The big negative with them has always been they kind of fade off at the end of the year. And Lamar Jackson has, but not this year. December. That's why he's catapulted himself into the lead, I believe, in the MVP race because of the fact that he's maintained it and he's playing his best football right now. He's going to have his hands full with that Miami defense that's playing much better. But that game is going to be phenomenal. Can't wait to see it on the AFC side. Now we switch to the NFC side and a matchup. And this one's interesting to me, David, because you have the Cowboys at home, right? Different team at home than they are on the road. They can't win on the road. We saw that in Miami again. They can't disprove it. So until they do, that's the narrative. But at home, they're so tough at home. And you have a Detroit team coming off a win where they won the NFC North for the very first time, their first division title since 1993. And they're going to Dallas now. They don't really have all that much to play for, but Dallas is still playing to try to win the NFC East title. How do you look at it? Is Dallas, because of the road woes, does it carry over at home at all because of the doubts and because they're not playing great football necessarily going into the playoffs? Or do they put it all together like they usually do at home? And do the Detroit Lions maybe sit guys and we see maybe a lopsided affair here?
I don't think the Lions are going to sit anybody. I think they still have an outside shot at the number one seed. They have to
Mm.
hope that the 49ers stumble a little bit, which they could do. You never know. They're coming off a game where they got badly beaten up. And they're playing Washington this weekend, which, they're Washington, but still the 49ers could have some issues with their offensive line, for instance. But anyway, forgetting about the 49ers for a moment, talking about this game with Detroit definitely still has something to play for in this game. I think they have something to prove. I think in that as the number 2 seed to prove that they are worthy of where they are in the seeding. And with the Cowboys, I think with the Cowboys, they're going to get it together at home. I think they're going to play much better than they have on the road the last 2 weeks. And they have to hope for the best in terms of how if they could just win out and hope that the Eagles lose out, then they could maybe leapfrog the Eagles in that division. It's very unlikely to happen, but
Mhm.
they need that to preserve their playoff lives because we know the Cowboys on the road cannot beat a quality team. They have not proven that this year at all. They are 3-5 on the road, and they still just when they're on the road, they for whatever reason they can't stop the run. They can't do whatever it is. It's 1 week it's this thing, and next week it's something else. But whatever it is, it all adds up to the Cowboys not being able to win on the road. And it looks like in the playoffs they're going to have to win on the road. And so for the Cowboys have the incentive of, we need to get it together at home, and I think they will, but they have to win their next 2 games, and they have to hope that the Eagles lose. And so I think coming into this game, the Cowboys clearly have more incentive in this game.
They do. And listen, the Cowboys continue, even in the loss in Miami, they passing the ball. Dak Prescott looks good. He didn't turn over the ball. 2 touchdowns. You have CeeDee Lamb continues his just hot run. He had 6 catches, 118 yards, and a touchdown. But the Cowboys, this is where you look at teams, in my view, David, tell me if you disagree. When they get to playoff time, you want teams that have balance, right? We talked about that earlier with Miami trying to beat the Ravens this weekend. And the Cowboys can't run the ball. And to
Mhm.
me, that's an inhibiting factor too. When they get into the playoffs, whether it's on the road or at home, however it all works out, that's where I would be worried as a Cowboys fan is, look, yeah, Dak can fling it and CD can catch it, but that balance just isn't there. And even at home, it's not there.
Hmm. That's right. They really don't have much of a running game to speak of. Their weaponry, their mode of attack is Dak to CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
That's how they win games. And so, and I would imagine that's how they're going to go about it again this weekend. So, whoever they have, Tony Pollard, kind of a average season or whatever. They haven't run the ball that effectively. They're going to need to do that against this Lions defense, though, this weekend. And I don't see this being a blowout by any stretch of the imagination. We've seen what the Cowboys have done to teams that come in there to AT&T Stadium. They typically blow them out, but that we have to remember too that how many winning teams have they played
Yeah.
at their stadium? They played
Yeah.
the Eagles, okay? The Eagles were coming off the 49ers loss, and then they lose in Dallas 33-13. So they do have that win over the Eagles and have the win over the Seahawks. So two playoff teams there that they've beaten at home. But otherwise, they've blown out everybody else, the Giants and whoever else that's come through there. This is not going to be the case with the Lions. The Lions are a different ball team. They're solid on both sides of the ball. They run the ball well, which could be a problem for the Cowboys
Yes.
with their running backs. They got David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs, who's been uh, hot lately as a rookie, and Goff's been throwing the ball around pretty well. So I think this is not going to be an easy game. I see the Cowboys winning the game,
Okay.
but it's going to come down right to the end. I see it being like a 28-27 sort of game.
28-27. Yeah. And you got to give the Cowboys the edge at home. I think the Lions could win the game myself, but
Mm-hmm.
again, you have to respect, just as you have to question them on the road, you have to respect their record at AT&T Stadium because it is what it is. I mean, it's right there and it's tough to go in there and play. All I know, and I agree with you, I think Dan Campbell, I don't care if they've got their playoff spot. You're right. They have an outside shot at the first seed, even if it's minor, but also he's just a tough dude. His teams do not lay down. Even when they're getting beat, you can see them. And so I don't think they're going to go to Dallas and want to lay down just to get ready for the playoffs. So it'll be interesting. Now, you gave us your prediction for the Cowboys games. Let's go back to Dolphins and Ravens. How does this one end up?
I see it being 30-24 for the Ravens. I think they win the game. I don't think it's a field goal separation there. I think that the Ravens win it sort of going away, but with not enough of a cushion there where it's not going to come down to the last minute of the game necessarily. I think what happens is the Dolphins kind of score a kind of garbage touchdown toward the end.
Uh,
But I think the Ravens are going to be in control of that game throughout 30-24.
yeah, this time of the year, David, as you know, covering the league, momentum is so important. I just think the Ravens, barring some craziness, they have so much momentum. And I like watching the Dolphins play. You guys know that from the coverage we do here and all that. But I will tell you, I just think that they are on that train track heading towards Vegas in the Super Bowl and probably the San Francisco 49ers. So we'll see how it all goes. David, as always, it's a pleasure to talk about this. What do you got coming? Any coverage of this game you want to point people to up on sportsnaut.com?
Well, it is listed already as our game of the week. I mean, it's our top game. There's a file up about the top 5 matchups of the week. It's leading with Ravens and the Dolphins, with the second game being the Lions and the Cowboys. So there's that already up on the site. We'll have more things coming on the Ravens. I know I'm writing something on Lamar Jackson today, and that'll go up a little bit later on. But yeah, plenty of coverage of both big games going into this weekend.
Yeah, make sure you check it out up on sportsnaut.com where you can find all the action, including we do picks. We got everything up there as well. Also, do us a favor, make sure you subscribe here to the YouTube channel. Hit that notifications bell. That way, every time we have a new video, guess what? You're going to be the first one to know, and we will keep it all ready to go for you there and covering the NFL this weekend. David, as always, man, it's a pleasure, and we'll talk to you soon, and we'll talk to you next week about next week's Games of the Week.
Sounds great, Scott. Love it.